In the distant village of Eldridge, nestled between rolling hills and ancient forests, Marcus led a humble life managing his family's farm. At 23, he spent his days cultivating the land, finding solace in the rhythm of rural existence, while secretly yearning for something greater. One summer morning began like any other, with Marcus heading to the stream to collect water for the day's tasks. However, the air felt different that day, charged with an inexplicable energy. The birds had fallen silent, and the leaves rustled without a breeze. As he knelt by the stream, the air in front of him began to shimmer like heat waves rising from sun-baked earth. That's when he saw her. She appeared like starlight taking form, her presence making the ordinary world around her seem dull by comparison. Her hair was a flowing platinum, as if caught in an invisible breeze, with strands that captured and released light with every movement. Her eyes were the deepest blue Marcus had ever encountered, like gazing into the heart of an ocean untouched by human hands. Her attire was beyond description, flowing garments that seemed woven from living light, shifting and changing with each breath she took. They draped around her form in a manner that was both modest and captivating. "Please," she said, her voice carrying musical notes that no human throat could produce. "Don't be afraid." The words formed in Marcus's mind even as her lips moved in unfamiliar patterns. Realizing he had been holding his breath, he replied, "I'm not afraid." Surprised to find it true, just astonished. "Who are you?" She smiled, and the morning seemed to glow brighter. "My name is Lyra. I come from what you would call the Andromeda Galaxy." She stepped closer, moving with a grace that made every motion appear choreographed. "We've been observing your world, studying your cultures and ways of life." "Why reveal yourself to me?" Marcus asked, finding courage in her gentle demeanor. Lyra's expression turned playful, a spark of mischief dancing in those impossible eyes. "Because you're different, Marcus. I've watched you when you think no one is looking, the way you gaze at the stars, the questions in your heart. You dream of more than this village, don't you?" Her words struck a chord deep within him. "How do you know my name?" "I know many things about you," she said, moving closer still. The air around her carried a scent reminiscent of flowers blooming in zero gravity. "Just as I know I'm breaking several protocols by speaking with you." She reached out her fingers, stopping just short of touching his cheek. "But some rules are worth breaking, don't you think?" Marcus felt his heart race, not from fear but from something entirely different, something thrilling and dangerous. "Why? Why are you really here?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's smile held secrets from across the galaxy. "Perhaps," she said, "I'm tired of just observing. Perhaps I want to understand what it means to truly connect with someone from your world." Her eyes met his, and in them, he saw possibilities he had never dared to dream of. "Would you help me understand?" The water bucket lay forgotten by the stream as morning light painted the scene in gold, and Marcus knew with absolute certainty that his life would never be the same. The rest of the morning passed in a daze for Marcus. He somehow managed to complete his chores, though he couldn't quite remember doing them. His mind kept drifting back to Lyra, to the way light seemed to dance around her, to the melodic sound of her voice echoing in his thoughts. As evening approached, he found himself drawn back to the stream. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of purple and gold that reminded him of the shifting colors in her dress. He sat on a fallen log, idly tossing pebbles into the water. "Your thoughts are very loud," came her voice from behind him. Marcus turned to find Lyra standing there, her form even more ethereal in the twilight. "My people can sense strong emotions, and yours have been calling to me all day." She sat beside him on the log, close enough that he could feel a subtle warmth radiating from her like sunlight through crystal. "I shouldn't be here again," she said, though she made no move to leave. "My research team will notice my absence." "Then why risk it?" Marcus asked, finding courage in the growing darkness. Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting starlight that hadn't yet appeared in the sky. "Because in all my studies of your world, I've never encountered anyone quite like you. There's something about your spirit that—" She paused, searching for the right words, "that resonates with mine." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked, his heart beginning to race again. "It means," she said, moving slightly closer, "that some connections transcend the boundaries of space and species." Her hand found his, and where their skin touched, tiny points of light danced between them. "Can you feel that?" Marcus nodded, unable to speak. The sensation was like electricity, but softer, more innate, as if their very atoms were trying to harmonize with each other. My people believe that similar souls call to each other across the cosmos, Lyra continued, her voice growing softer. We are taught to ignore these calls when they come from developing worlds like yours, but... She lifted her free hand to his face, her fingers finally making contact with his cheek, sending cascades of gentle energy through his skin. I find I don't want to ignore this one. What happens now? Marcus managed to ask, though it was becoming difficult to think clearly with the patterns of light swirling between them. Lyra's smile held both mischief and promise. Now I show you what it means to touch the stars. She stood, pulling him up with her. Would you like to see how I perceive your world? Before Marcus could respond, the air around them began to shimmer. The familiar landscape of his village seemed to fold in on itself, reality bending like light through a prism. When everything settled again, they stood in what appeared to be the same spot. But everything was different. The stream now flowed with what looked like liquid starlight. The grass beneath their feet gave off a soft phosphorescent glow with each step, and the air itself was filled with floating points of light that drifted like cosmic fireflies. Welcome, Lyra said, her form now glowing even more brightly in this transformed space, to the overlap between our realities. Marcus stood transfixed in the transformed landscape, where reality itself seemed to dance at the edges of perception. The familiar woods of his village were now an ethereal forest of light and shadow, where trees pulsed with inner luminescence, and the very air sparkled with possibilities. What is this place? He asked, reaching out to touch one of the floating lights. It swirled around his fingers playfully before drifting away. A pocket dimension, Lyra explained, moving through the space with practiced grace. It exists between your world and mine, a place where the laws of physics are more flexible. She gestured around them. My people use these spaces to conduct our research without interfering with developing civilizations. She approached a tree that seemed to be made of crystalline light. Here, I can show you how I truly see your world. She touched the trunk, and ripples of color cascaded through its branches. Every living thing pulses with energy, with potential. Your scientists are just beginning to understand quantum entanglement. We've learned to embrace it. Marcus watched in wonder as she moved, her form seeming to blur at the edges as if she existed in multiple states at once. Why show me all this? Lyra turned to him, her eyes now containing what looked like swirling galaxies. Because you're different, Marcus. Most humans would run in fear from what I am, what I represent. But you... She moved closer, leaving trails of light in her wake. You look at me with wonder instead of fear, with curiosity instead of suspicion. How could I be afraid? Marcus asked, feeling drawn to her. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Lyra's laughter was like wind chimes in zero gravity. Beauty is such a relative concept across species. What you see now is just my energy translated into forms your mind can comprehend. My true form might shock you. Show me, Marcus said, surprising them both with his boldness. Lyra's expression turned serious. Are you sure? There's no going back from this kind of knowledge. When Marcus nodded, Lyra stepped back and closed her eyes. The air around her began to vibrate with possibility. Her form shifted, becoming something that existed in more dimensions than Marcus's mind could process. For a brief moment, he glimpsed her true self, a being of pure energy and thought, of light and mathematics, of cosmic beauty that defied human understanding. Then she collapsed back into her humanoid form, though now Marcus could see the edges where reality bent around her, could perceive hints of her true nature bleeding through. That's incredible, he breathed, reaching out to touch her face. Where their skin met, patterns of light danced between them, stronger now that he could truly see her. You're not afraid? Lyra asked, leaning into his touch. No, Marcus replied. If anything, He struggled to find the words. I want to know more, to understand more. Too? Lyra stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. To feel more, she suggested, her voice carrying harmonics that made his whole body resonate. Their first kiss was like touching a live wire, but instead of pain, it brought waves of pleasure and understanding. Marcus felt his consciousness expanding, touching the edges of something vast and beautiful. Lyra's energy merged with his, showing him glimpses of distant stars, of worlds beyond imagination, of possibilities he had never dreamed of. The kiss deepened, and with it, reality itself seemed to shift. Marcus felt weightless, as if the normal rules of physics no longer applied around them. The pocket dimension responded to their emotions. The floating light swirled faster. The luminescent trees pulsed with increasing intensity, and the very air seemed charged with possibility. "This is dangerous," Lyra whispered against his lips, even as she pulled him closer. "The energy exchange between us, it's changing you." Indeed, Marcus could see a faint glow beginning to emanate from his own skin, matching the rhythm of Lyra's light. "I don't care," he replied, running his fingers through her starlight hair. Where they touched, cascades of energy flowed between them, each point of contact creating new patterns of light and sensation. Their union transcended physical boundaries as they came together. Marcus experienced consciousness on levels he never knew existed. He saw through Lyra's eyes, witnessed the beauty of distant galaxies, felt the dance of quantum particles, and understood the interconnectedness of all things. Hours passed like seconds, in their private realm of light and sensation. When they finally separated, Marcus noticed that his body retained a subtle glow, and he could still feel echoes of Lyra's consciousness touching his own. "What's happening to me?" he asked, watching patterns of light dance beneath his skin. Lyra traced the glowing patterns with her finger. "My essence has begun bonding with yours at a quantum level. It's irreversible." She looked concerned, but not regretful. "This kind of cross-species melding, it's our highest taboo." "The consequences." "Will it hurt me?" Marcus asked, though he felt more fascinated than afraid. "No," she said softly, "but it will change you. You'll never be fully human again. You'll start to see things differently, feel things differently. Your consciousness will expand into spaces it was never meant to reach." She paused, studying his face. "I'm sorry. I should have had more control." Marcus caught her hand, holding it against his glowing chest. "Don't be sorry. I chose this. I choose you." Before she could respond, her head snapped up, eyes wide with alarm. "They're coming," she whispered. "The research team has detected our energy signature. They'll trace it back here." "What will they do?" Marcus asked, suddenly afraid. Not for himself, but for her. Lyra's expression was complex. "Best case, they'll simply extract me from this assignment, erase your memories, and pretend none of this happened." She touched his glowing skin. "But with these changes already manifesting in you, they might decide more drastic measures are necessary." "Then let's run," Marcus said without hesitation. "You can take us somewhere else, somewhere they won't find us." Lyra's eyes sparkled with something between hope and mischief. "It would mean leaving everything behind. Your family, your village, your whole world." "You're my world now," Marcus replied, surprising himself with the truth of it. Lyra's response was cut short by a sudden shift in the pocket dimension. The air began to crackle with new energy, and the floating lights scattered like startled fish. 3 forms materialized around them, beings of pure energy that barely held humanoid shape. "Observer," one of them spoke directly into their minds. You have violated our most sacred protocols. The human has been quantum touched," another observed, its form fluctuating with what might have been. "Alarm! The contamination has already begun." Lyra stepped in front of Marcus protectively, her form beginning to shift toward her true state. "He's not contaminated. He's evolving. Look at how his consciousness has expanded. He can perceive us in our true form and remain sane. Don't you understand what this means?" The third being moved closer, studying Marcus with senses he could now partially perceive. "Fascinating. The melding appears stable. His neural pathways are adapting to process quantum information." It turned to its companions. "Perhaps we have been too rigid in our assumptions about developing species." "That doesn't excuse the protocol breach," the first being insisted, though Marcus sensed uncertainty in its tone. "No," Lyra agreed, "but it might justify a new protocol." She reached back for Marcus's hand, and where they touched, their energies merged visibly. "Look at the harmony of our quantum signatures. This isn't contamination, it's synthesis." The beings conferred in frequencies Marcus couldn't quite process, their forms rippling with complex emotions. Finally, the first one spoke again. "We cannot ignore this violation," it said, "but neither can we ignore its implications. You've proven that cross-species quantum bonding is possible without catastrophic consequences. This changes things. We offer you a choice. The second being address them both. Either submit to separation and memory extraction, it paused significantly, or become our first official human-android research partnership. What does that mean? Marcus asked, squeezing Lyra's hand. It means, the third being explained, you would work with us, exploring the possibilities this discovery presents. Your bond would be monitored but preserved. You would be a bridge between our species, helping us understand each other. There are others like you, Lyra added softly. Humans who look to the stars and dream. We could help prepare your world for the knowledge that you're not alone. Marcus looked at his glowing skin, at the woman he loved, at the cosmic beings offering him a future beyond anything he had imagined. In his mind, new awareness bloomed like stars being born. Why choose, he asked, feeling Lyra's energy pulse with approval. We could do both, maintain our connection here, and explore the cosmos together. After all, he smiled, echoing Lyra's words from what seemed like a lifetime ago, some rules are worth breaking to create better ones. Above them, the pocket dimension swirled with new possibilities, and somewhere in the vast spaces between stars, new protocols were being written. Protocols that spoke not of separation and fear, but of connection, evolution, and the infinite potential that exists when love dares to cross the boundaries of space itself. The end. Or perhaps the beginning,